Kate Van Buskirk, joined by Trevor Fulkerson, and you are watching the 23rd edition of MCTC on Runner Space. It's been a great start to the evening, great start to the weekend, and again, lots more to come under beautiful conditions. The sun is setting, the wind is low, and as we've said many times throughout this meet so far, we've got a small but mighty field here for our pro men's 5,000 meter.
This should be a really good one, and I'm certainly going to defer to your expertise here, Kate, as an Olympian in this event for your native Canada. I know your first love, if I'm reading you right, is the 1,500, the middle distance, but the 5,000 meters is what got you the rings, and so you know a little something about the strategy here, how to apportion your effort and things like that. So it's always so interesting to me to kind of get inside the mind of somebody who's been in these kind of races. And as these men are looking to obviously take their time down, qualify for various things, that's kind of the, where that strategy comes in is always what's so interesting to hear.
Well, look, I'm going to tell you that I'm not going to, abide these guys any complaints about any weather, given that I ran in Tokyo and about, well, let me do some conversions here, about 97 degrees Fahrenheit. So certainly cooler on track for these guys tonight. But yes, the 5,000, there's only so many of them that you can do during a season. And I think that's key. These guys are having to choose their timing really well. They're having to choose their energy distribution. And again, the 5,000, such a great meeting point. Those 1,500 meter, maybe 3,000 meter runners coming up to the longer distance, the 10,000 meter runners coming down. And it's always a great battle between the speedsters and the strength runners. So again, not a huge field, but we're going to see some excellent talent on the track tonight. And looks as though we have our runners set to go. Wearing hip number 1 is going to be Jake Mitchum. He comes in with the fastest time of the pack. I think Mohamed Uhari of Morocco may be our pacer. And then Devontae Jet Reynolds is going to be wearing hip 3. Lucas Town wearing hip 4. Tyler Morse in hip 5. And then Eli Kaczynski wearing hip 8. Hamza Jahid was set to be our pacer. So we're just going to let things play out here and make sure that we have exactly who's doing what goal and what position here. But we do have some fantastic times. 13:51. We have a couple of sub 14-minute performers. And that's what you like to see on a night like this. It's a little breezy, as you can see, but that's going to cool things down for these runners. And all things being equal, for a race in Tennessee in almost June, this is about as perfect as you can expect.
Talked about the sprinters earlier, like in the heat and not minding the humidity, but the distance runners certainly want it crisp and cool. And it is. It's nice timing. It's cooled down a little bit. The wind has died, as you said. Got a good pacemaker out there. And, sometimes we talk about almost a binary where it's a championship race or it's kind of a time trial, And I think this is somewhere in the middle because there's nothing wrong with, I say a time trial, not in a derogatory or pejorative sense, right? Because these guys are out here to run fast. Now, obviously, it's not a championship race, but there's pride on the line. They're racing the clock. So many of these guys knocking on the door of 14 minutes and knowing that there's other sub 14-minute guys in the pack, and you want to take advantage, like you said, of every chance you have to run a good 5,000.
Well, we have just gotten word that our top seed in the race was meant to be Jake Mitchum. He's not feeling great, so he's actually dropped down to the open section. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to see, again, a strung out field and some really fast times early on here in this pro men's race. So that is Shahid, who's taking the pace out for the rest of the field. His teammate, Jahari, just behind him, and then the American, Devontae Jet Reynolds, sitting about a second behind the rest of the pack. Although, as I say that, looks as though there may be some lead changes up front. Nonetheless, a very strong trio leading the rest of the pack, trying to keep things honest.
Yeah, right at 65 seconds or so, right on pace. Pacer's supposed to go through maybe 2,400 or so. Like you said, it doesn't always play out that way as you write it on paper, but we'll see how he's feeling out in front. But hitting his pace so far, right at 65s. And meet record 13:37 by Farah Abdul Karim of Canada back in 2020. Facility record, though, 13:53.23. Josephat Melli of Harding.
So again, some separation with those top three back to the chase too. And this is where you don't want to let, I've talked about this before, the elastic string out too much because eventually it snaps. You want to keep things as tight as possible, especially in those chase runners in fourth and fifth at the moment. Top three looking really strong. You can see that sort of upper body forward lean by our leaders. And it continues to be those three working together. Again, two of them pacers, one of them a racer proper. And they are going to benefit from, again, the conditions, the very fast track, and then also the fact that they have some pacemakers on site to keep things honest.
Don't let the elastic snap. I like that. I'm gonna steal that from you, Kate. I think I can use that. I like to say accordion sometimes when they spread out and condense and spread out and condense, and that just seems to take a lot of energy. But you're exactly right. You don't want to get disconnected from that lead pack and kind of end up in no man's land, or almost worse, you kind of put your eyes down and say, okay, now I'm fighting the guys around me and not necessarily fighting for the win. But there's some pretty good separation as it stands right now. You said our two pacers, Devontae Jet Reynolds there, and a couple seconds back to the rest of the field.
So our first pacer is about to step off. This was the New Zealander. And now we have Chahid taking over the second pacer duty. So Hamza Chahid, the Moroccan, moves to the lead. Again, just ahead of his countryman, Johari, who's leading the race proper. So 3:49.75. They've been very consistent around that 66-second mark. And you better believe that these guys are going to be working hard together. Chahid continuing to lead things out. Johari in second. And a big gap now back to our third place athlete. But these two coming through strong. The finish line with 3 laps to go. And both looking very strong, very composed. The Moroccans 1-2, and then Jet Reynolds and Town of the USA working together in third and fourth at 3:53 and 3:54 on the clock.
Looking pretty smooth, as you said, the two countrymen out there. That's the advantage of having a pacer, is just settling in, putting your eyes right on his back and just not having to worry about your own pace, just worrying about settling in and locking into that pace. They've been very consistent, 65 to 66 flat, as you said. Johari ran at Eastern Kentucky, contested the collegiate scene up until indoors of this year.
Well, and through that last 1,000-meter split, they were 5:30 through 2,000 meters. So that puts them right on that 13:45 pace. 67 for that last lap. So they've been fairly consistent in their lap-by-lap paces.
Yeah, I think that 67 probably is the slowest thus far of the race, but you're exactly right. If they can dip in that range, the facility record may be under threat, as we said, 13:53 by Josephat Melli of Harding. So certainly something to watch for. But Johari, a good 10K runner as well, 10,000. He's run 28:29, so he certainly has the strength. He's run 13:51 and would love to pick up a personal best, dip into the 13:40s.
Well, and this is interesting now when the athlete and the pacer sort of play cat and mouse. Again, the idea was to go through about 2,500 meters. So that would be very close to where we are now. Hamza Chahid, Mohamed Johari, and then back, but making up some ground, Devontae Jet Reynolds. There you see the Americans battling out down the backstretch again. The pacer in the form of, I believe that was meant to be Mitchum. But the two Moroccans up front and having some conversation now. That's a good sign. That means that they're talking, they're comfortable enough to be able to take on this pace. And it does look as though our pacer is going to step off or step back as promised at 2,500 meters. So again, we find ourselves in a situation where we have a solo athlete up front taking on a time trial style race and looking to take advantage again of beautiful conditions, a very fast track, strong crowd support. And it is going to be Johari all by himself for the remainder of this race. He's got to keep his eyes up. He's got to keep his focus on his tempo and just stay strong over these last 5 laps.
Well, I know our pacer has dropped off, Kate, but speak to your experience as a pacer. How do you decide? I assume that's always the goal, to go as far as you said you would or you agreed to. Now, if you're not feeling good, then certainly you should step aside. But do you ever think about going longer? Hey, I'm feeling great. I can maybe do another lap and a half at this same pace.
I won't name the meet, but I will tell you that there was one situation where I was pacing a 5,000 meter for a high level race, and I was told that every 200 meters I made it past my assigned distance, I would make an extra X number of dollars. And I better tell you, I ran much further than I was planning to race that day.
Hey, we're all friends here. So. You can share the inside baseball there if you want, but that's a pretty darn good incentive.
It sure is. Now, I got to say, our leader looks incredibly strong. And so for someone who doesn't have a pacer in front of him, my goodness, this is very, very strong running up front. And he looks as though he might be pacing himself. That's a really hard thing to do. As I mentioned, I've appreciated the benefit of pacers. I know what it's like to be a pacer myself. Another 77-second lap there for Johari of Morocco, I should say. So he is just continuing to cruise down that backstretch. The stride, the turnover is really fast. He looks strong. He looks relaxed. The arm carriage is low but fast. This is exactly what you want to be seeing at this point in a race, metronomic pacing. And it's really, really hard to do as the fatigue starts to set in. But we're 10 minutes on the clock, and he is showing no signs of slowing.
Looks really comfortable. Try to keep clicking off those 67-second laps, and now it certainly becomes a true time trial as he doesn't have any company. He takes a peek over his shoulder, but there is plenty of daylight between him and Devontae Jet Reynolds, former Adams State D2 qualifier. It's almost 100 meters now. You can see as he comes in to that home stretch, Johari way out in front, maybe call it 80, 90 meters or so, but he'll cross the line one more time. And he slowed a little bit, 68 high on the previous lap. But this is tough running when it's all by yourself.
Well, again, that's such a hard tempo to maintain completely solo. As we said, he couldn't ask for much better conditions in almost June in Tennessee. Taking full advantage, but doing it all by himself. So he is coming up now, I believe, on 1,000 meters to go. He's been still clicking off that 68, 67-second tempo. So that is impressive running, again, by himself. Look at the form. He just has not showed any signs of slowing. The turnover's high, the back kick is strong, the arms are low and relaxed. The only place you're starting to see it a little bit is in the face, and that is a tell-all, where you look back just to see where your competition might be. Again, nowhere in sight in terms of, a threat. But this just might be showing some signs of fatigue for the first time in our leader. 11:43 on the clock as he comes through with 2 laps to go.
Another 68-second lap there. He has that 13:51 best that came earlier this year, so he has to feel that he is in good form. That came just about a month and a half ago over in North Carolina at Wake Forest. So this, like you said, great conditions here, just about as good as you could ask for these distance runners. And he's trying to make the absolute most of it. Johari working hard out in front.
Well, we talk about barriers, and of course 14 minutes in the 5,000, such a huge barrier. 600 meters to go now. As he hit his last kilometer split at 11:12, that put him right on 13:57 pace, I should say, for the total 5,000 meters. So he knows that he's going to be awfully close to it. Coming around into the home stretch for that penultimate time. He's at 12:37 on the clock with 500 meters to go. This is where he has to dig deep. He's been working so hard, so consistently. The form has not changed, but he's going to need a real focused injection of pace here. He'll hear the bell, 12:51 on the clock. Well, that means that he's going to need about a 67 seconds lap, let's call it, for his final quarter mile here if he's going to break that 14-minute barrier.
He's done it before. He'd love to make it a habit. He'll be likely off of his 13:51 best, but as you said, even within a couple of seconds of that, doing it just about all by yourself. 200 meters to go now, 13:25, trying to dip under 14 minutes by as much as possible. This is our leader, Mohamed Jahari, getting it done with 150 to go.
Jahari has been, again, a metronome throughout the entirety of this men's 5,000 meter. He fully moves into the final stretch here. 80 meters separate him from the finish line. It is going to be Mohamed Jahari with a decisive win, courtesy of Morocco, I should say, 12:51. His best, he's going to come across well outside of that 13:58. But a great final push for him. It was a 68-second penultimate lap, a 64-second final lap, and that is going to bring him through well under 14 minutes, 13:56.23 for the Moroccan Jahari. Good help from his teammate, courtesy of early pacing. Comes away with a win. It's going to be the American Jet Reynolds crossing the line for second. 14:24.56 for him. And then look at this fight for third between Town and Morse. It will be Lucas Town taking the third place finish in 14:39.90. All credit goes to Tyler Morse for a 65-second final lap. That will land him fourth in 3 seconds outside of a podium finish at 14:42.26.
Well, and there's always something positive to take away. So again, we look at the final time, and that tells part of the story, but how you did it matters. And as we look back here, like you said, not the biggest field. We've seen bigger fields in some of the shorter events, which we're used to seeing really busy 5Ks, but as his pacer steps wide, Jahari takes over, does the rest of the work himself, clicks off some pretty consistent laps, and then moves on to a 64 high final lap. And I think that's the story. If I'm coach, I'm saying, hey, there was a lot of good there. You did it all by yourself. You closed pretty well in that 64, 65 second final lap, increasing your pace over the final 400 meters. And that is a very, very good race. Not far outside his 13:51 best, as we said. So on a nice, well, warm-ish, cooling down afternoon, evening here in Cleveland, Tennessee, it is Mohamed Jahari taking the victory for Morocco.